She went undercover to take him down, not fall in love with him. Detective Madinah Willow, former CIA, thought Petersburg would be her quiet reset. Then Min-Jae arrived. Billionaire, handsome, untouchable, dangerous, and now he knows exactly who she is. Welcome to Christmas in Old Towne Love Stories, where ambitious women, unexpected love, and the holiday spirit collides. If you believe in soft love, second chances, and Christmas miracles, like, comment, and most importantly, subscribe. We'd appreciate your support. All of these stories are a part of the world for our upcoming film, Christmas in Old Towne. Now, let's get into the story. Former K-pop idol turned A-list actor Tae Kim had returned home to Petersburg, Virginia from a brief, but necessary film shoot in Seoul. Maeve, his wife of 2 years, greeted him at the door with that hug that still made his heart swell. She was holding their infant son, Yoon, who they named after Yoon Songbin, their favorite contestant on Netflix's hit show Physical 100. Tae laughed. "He's cute like you." Maeve made a muscle. "You mean strong like me, but the way this boy is up all night, he for sure has your energy." Tae performed choreographed moves from his K-pop days in the living room. Maeve just shook her head. For a few precious days, he basked in the comforting rhythm of being back home in family life. But the reprieve was short-lived. They had eaten a delicious meal, a mix of Korean and Southern cooking. Everything was cleaned up and the house was finally quiet, which, in Maeve Kim's opinion, felt like a minor miracle and a federal holiday all rolled into one. She lay tucked against Tae, her head resting on his chest, listening to the steady rhythm of his heartbeat and the faint hum of the baby monitor on the nightstand. Just beyond the cracked door, Yoon was asleep, miraculously. Suspiciously peacefully, if you asked her. Maeve tilted her head up. "Should we check on him?" Tae didn't even open his eyes. "We checked on him 4 minutes ago." Maeve sighed with nervousness. He smiled, eyes still closed, one hand lazily massaging her arm. "Maeve, he's fine." She narrowed her eyes at him. "You don't know that." "I do," he said, finally looking at her. "Because he has you as a mother. You probably taught him how to write his own sleep schedule." She gasped at his joke. "I did not. You color-coded his onesies." "That was one time. It's all the time." She tried very hard not to smile. Failed. Life had changed in ways Maeve never could have predicted, starting with the international superstar currently serving as her personal human pillow. Tae Kim, once the most elusive man. In every room he entered, now spent his nights debating diaper brands and convincing his wife that wearing color would not, in fact, ruin her life. She was currently in pale blue. That was progress. Their love story had been unexpected, fast, a little chaotic with his celebrity status and her being the mayor's top assistant. But this was steady. Real. Home. Tae pressed a soft kiss to her forehead. "You're thinking again." "I always think." "I know. It's one of your more intimidating qualities." She huffed lightly, settling back against him. "I just didn't think life would look like this." She kissed him on the cheek before adding, "You and the baby." He glanced around the room, the soft lamplight, the baby monitor, Maeve in his arms, and smiled. "Yeah," he said quietly. "Me neither. Never knew I'd be this blessed." "God is good," she said. For a moment, everything felt still. Then Tae's phone rang. They both froze. Maeve blinked. "Who is calling you at?" She glanced at the clock. A time when folks are knocked out. Tae reached for his phone, his expression shifting the second he saw the screen. Not alarmed, but alert, Maeve noticed. "Who is it?" He hesitated just a beat too long. "My cousin. The one who sends fruit or the sus one who sends ridiculously expensive gifts?" "The latter." Maeve pushed herself up on one elbow with understanding. "Oh, the one with a questionable job." Tae nodded while answering his phone. "Yup." "It's Yuna." His tone had changed completely. Maeve didn't miss that either. She watched his face as he listened, really listened, and whatever ease had filled the room moments ago quietly slipped out the door. "When?" he asked. A pause, his jaw tightened. "I understand." Another pause, then quieter. "I'll handle it." He ended the call and sat there for a moment, staring at nothing. Maeve's stomach dropped. "Tae," he looked at her, and just like that, the softness was gone, replaced by something sharper, protective. "Complicated. There's someone coming to Petersburg," he said. Maeve frowned. "Okay, we get visitors all the time. Not like this." Something in his voice made her sit up straighter. "Who?" Tae didn't answer right away. He ran a hand through his hair like he was deciding how much to say and how much not to. "His name is Min-Jae Oh," he said finally. "And if you were just a businessman, Yuna wouldn't have called me." Maeve watched him carefully. "Okay, so who is he?" Tae exhaled once. "He's the head of Seoul's underworld." That landed. Maeve blinked. "I'm sorry, the head." Yes, she sat up straighter. Like organized crime, Tay gave her a look. Very organized. He took over when he was 20, Tay continued. His father built the foundation. Min-Jae turned it into something else entirely. Meaning, bigger, smarter, harder to trace. Tay's voice was calm, but there was an edge to it now. In 10 years, he's multiplied their operations several times over. Money, influence, people. Maeve frowned. People. He has an army, Tay said simply. Loyal, well-trained, and very well paid. That's comforting, Maeve muttered. Tay almost smiled, but it didn't quite reach his eyes. The strange thing is, he's not chaos, Tay added. He's controlled, calculated, he doesn't move unless there's a long-term play. Maeve tilted her head. So what's the play here? Tay leaned back against the headboard, watching her. There's a piece of land here, he said. The last stretch of untouched farmland in Petersburg. The owner finally decided to sell. Maeve's eyes widened slightly. Everyone's been talking about that. Min-Jae has been watching it, Tay said. For a while. For farmland. Not for what it is, Tay replied. For what it can become. Maeve folded her arms. Which is? On paper, Tay said. A state-of-the-art data center, jobs, infrastructure, progress. Maeve nodded slowly. And off paper, Tay met her eyes. A global hub for illegal information trafficking. Silence. Maeve stared at him. You're telling me he wants to build a criminal empire here. He already has an empire, Tay said quietly. This would make it untouchable. She let out a breath. Why Petersburg? Because no one would expect it, Tay said. Small town, clean reputation, it looks like an opportunity, not a threat. Shook her head, packing now. Okay, no, absolutely not, Tay watched her. That's not even the part that concerns me the most, he said. Maeve stopped. There's more. There's always more. He doesn't do anything halfway, Tay continued. When he arrives, he'll have people with him. Of course he will. A small inner circle, Tay said. His assistant, Kianho, young, polished. Looks like he walked out of an Ivy League brochure. Maeve made a face. You know I went Harvard, I don't trust that already. You shouldn't, Tay said. And 2 bodyguards, Juhoon and Sunghyun, they don't speak much. Maeve crossed her arms. Let me guess, they don't need to. No, just like my bodyguard Bruno. She nodded once. Great, love that for us. Tay hesitated. There's something else, he added. Maeve sighed. Why do I feel like I'm not going to enjoy this part? Because you won't. Min-Jae doesn't blend in by shrinking, Tay said. They say he blends in by commanding the room in a different way. Maeve frowned. Meaning? He's hard to ignore, Tay said carefully. Tall, controlled, the kind of presence that makes people pay attention. Without understanding why, Maeve raised an eyebrow. You're being very poetic for someone describing a criminal. Tay huffed lightly. I'm being accurate, a beat. People are drawn to him, he said. Especially women. Maeve gave him a look. And he just lets that happen. He doesn't care, Tay said. From what I've heard, nothing distracts him from business, not for long. Maeve tilted her head. So he's cold. Tay considered that. No, he said. Not cold. Maeve waited. Selective. That was worse. And yet, Tay added almost as an afterthought, he takes care of people. Maeve blinked. What? Quietly, Tay said. Families, widows, kids, people connected to his world who would otherwise have nothing. Maeve stared at him. You're telling me a mafia boss has a charity program. I'm telling you, Tay said, he doesn't see himself as the villain. Maeve let that sit. Okay, she said finally, grabbing her phone. Well, villain or not, he's not setting up shop here without a fight. Tay watched her move, already 10 steps ahead, already in problem-solving mode. Maeve, she glanced back. What? Tay's expression softened just slightly. Be careful who you send after him. Maeve gave him a small, confident smile. Oh, the mayor won't send just anyone. Maeve didn't wait until morning. The mayor didn't either. Which was how, less than an hour later, the lights were on in City Hall and the 3 most powerful people in Petersburg huddled in her office, a place that had never, in its entire existence, hosted a conversation like this one. This is not a drill, the mayor said. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. Across from her, the chief of police, Timothy Preach, leaned back slightly, processing. You're telling me an international crime figure is planning to establish operations in my town? Maeve nodded. In a very well-dressed, very legal-looking way. The mayor's stance was steady. We are not panicking, we are not escalating prematurely, and we are absolutely not letting him think we're unprepared. The chief gave a slow nod. So we watch him. We get close to him, the mayor corrected. A beat. I know exactly who can do that. Detective Madinah Willow was not expecting her quiet, early morning to turn into this. She stood in the doorway of the office, one hand resting lightly against the frame, taking in the scene before stepping inside. Tall, composed, effortless, dressed stylishly in lilac, the kind of presence that didn't ask for attention but always got it. "Mayor, Chief Preach," she greeted. Her voice was calm, low, controlled. The chief gestured to the seat across from him. "Detective." Madinah sat, crossing her legs smoothly, her eyes moving between them. "What's the emergency?" The mayor didn't waste time. "Have you ever heard of Min-Jae Oh?" Madinah's expression didn't change, but something behind her eyes did. "Yes," she said. That was enough for the chief to sit up straighter. "You want to elaborate on that?" Madinah folded her hands lightly in her lap. "International criminal network, highly structured, extremely disciplined, difficult to penetrate." A small pause. "Very well funded." Maeve glanced at the mayor like, okay, she's scary calm. "And?" The mayor prompted. Madinah met her eyes. "He doesn't make mistakes." Silence. The mayor nodded once. "He's coming here." That got a reaction, not panic, not fear, focus. Madinah leaned forward slightly. "Why?" Maeve answered. "There's a piece of farmland he wants. He's presenting himself as a tech investor." Madinah's lips pressed together faintly. "He's not interested in farmland." "No," the mayor said. "He's interested in what he can build on it." Another beat. Madinah nodded slowly. Maeve added, "A huge data center. It'll support cloud computing, AI, and data storage, but mainly be a front for the sale and transfer of illegal information." "Then he's already 10 steps ahead." The chief leaned in. "Which is why we need someone who can keep up." Madinah glanced at him. "You're calling the CIA?" The mayor shook her head. "Not yet." That surprised her. "We handle this first," the mayor continued. "Quietly, locally, if we can build a case, then we escalate." Madinah studied her for a moment. "You want to get close to him," she said. The mayor smiled slightly. "I want you to get close to him." Madinah didn't immediately answer. "Walk me through it," she said. Maeve slid a tablet loaded with info across the table. "The land he wants is being sold through Petersburg's top real estate firm. We've already spoken to them. They're cooperating." Madinah opened the folder, scanning quickly. "I'll pose as an agent?" Madinah asked. "Not exactly," the mayor said. "You'll be his point of contact. The person assigned to guide him through the acquisition process, tour, meetings, events." The chief added, "You'll have access to him in controlled environments, public spaces, private walkthroughs, high-profile gatherings." Maeve leaned in slightly. "Museum galas, auctions, anything that gets him out where we can observe him." Madinah picked up the tablet. "And the goal?" "Watch him," the chief said. "Learn his patterns, identify his people, find something we can use." "And if I don't find anything?" the mayor said. "You will." Madinah exhaled softly, then leaned back in her chair. "Okay," she said. That was it. No hesitation, no dramatics, just okay. The chief raised an eyebrow. "That's it." Madinah gave a small shrug. "You wouldn't have called me if you didn't already know I would do it." Maeve blinked. "Oh, she's good." The mayor smiled slightly. "There is one more thing." Madinah glanced at her. "He's known for being perceptive," the mayor said carefully. "Our sources tell us that people tend to underestimate him at their own expense." Madinah's expression didn't shift. "They usually do," she said. "And he won't underestimate you?" the chief asked. For the first time, a hint of something, she gave an almost smile before saying, "He might." "And if he does?" Madinah stood, smooth and unhurried, sliding the tablet into her bag. "Then that's when it'll get really interesting." A few days later, the Petersburg Museum of Art had never looked more alive. Crystal chandeliers cast warm light over polished marble floors. A string quartet played something soft and expensive. Champagne flowed like it had something to prove. And for one night, Petersburg felt big city elevated. Madinah Willow stood at the top of the staircase, adjusting the delicate strap of her vibrant violet dress. Miss Eve, the owner of the best boutique in the area, had outdone herself. The gown was rich, fluid, cut to perfection. It hugged in all the right places, then fell effortlessly, like it had been designed to move with her. It was designed to stand out, and it certainly did on her warm brown skin. Her long dark hair cascaded over one shoulder, her makeup soft but intentional, those light hazel eyes catching the glow of the room. She looked like she belonged there. She always did. A junior officer passing by nearly tripped over nothing. Madinah didn't notice. Her focus was elsewhere. "He's here," the chief's voice murmured softly through her earpiece. Of course he was. Madinah picked up a glass of champagne from a passing tray, her movements unhurried, controlled. "Visual, front entrance." And Willow, "I know," she said quietly. "He doesn't make mistakes." "Neither do I." The room shifted before she even saw him. It was subtle. Conversations didn't stop, but they softened. attention tilted like flowers turning towards sunlight, then he stepped in. Min-Jae Oh didn't enter the gala, he arrived. Tall, easily 6'2", dressed in a perfectly tailored black suit that made no attempt to stand out and yet somehow did exactly that. Lean muscle beneath clean lines. Controlled. Precise. Devastatingly handsome in a way that felt unfair. At his side, just a step behind, was Kianho, his assistant, sharp, polished, preppy to perfection, scanning the room with quiet efficiency. Further back, like shadows given form, Ju-hoon and Sung-hyeon, still, silent, watching everything. Madinah took a slow sip of champagne. Not subtle, she murmured. Was he supposed to be? The chief replied. Min-Jae moved through the room with ease, acknowledging greetings, accepting introductions. His expression was composed, almost neutral, but not cold. Never cold. Selective. Madinah clocked it immediately. The way people leaned toward him. The way women smiled a little too brightly. The way he gave just enough attention to be polite and nothing more. He wasn't here to be liked, he was here to be accepted. And there's the check, Maeve's voice chimed in faintly. Across the room, Min-Jae handed over a donation, gracious, generous, perfectly timed. The kind of number that made people forget to ask questions. Applause followed, soft, respectful, exactly what he wanted. Madinah set her glass down. Time to work, she said. She moved through the crowd like she belonged to it because she did. A soft smile here. A nod there, effortless, natural, until he felt it. Min-Jae turned his head slightly, not enough for anyone else to notice, but enough, and he looked her up and down. Madinah didn't stop walking, but something in her chest shifted. Focus, she told herself. She waited, allowing the currents of the room to guide her. She spoke with the mayor, offered a few insightful comments on the city's economic projections to a prominent industrialist, and even engaged in a brief, witty exchange with a renowned sculptor whose work was being showcased. Each interaction was building a picture of competence, grace, and burgeoning influence. She wanted Min-Jae to not just see her, but to register her presence as a potential asset. She reached Min-Jae just as the applause faded. "Mr. Oh!" Her voice was smooth, confident. Close enough now she could see the details, the sharp lines of his face, the calm in his eyes, and the intelligence behind them. Dangerous. He looked at her fully now, and for the first time since entering the room, something flickered. Interest. "Yes," he said. His voice was low, controlled, accented just enough. Madinah extended her hand. "Madinah Willow. I've been assigned as your point of contact while you're in Petersburg." His gaze dropped briefly to her hand, then back to her eyes before he took it. His grip was firm, warm, electric. "I see," he said. Neither of them let go right away. Behind him, Kianho noticed. Of course he did. Madinah smiled, professional, composed. "The firm thought it would be best to give you a direct line for anything you need while you're considering the property." Min-Jae studied her, not her face, her presence. "You're with the real estate firm?" he asked. "Among other things," she said lightly. A hint of curiosity touched his expression. "We're scheduled to tour the farmland tomorrow," she continued. "I wanted to introduce myself in advance." "You're efficient," he said. "I value time," she replied. A pause, something unspoken passed between them. He wasn't looking away. Most people did eventually. Madinah didn't. Behind her calm, her pulse ticked up once. "Stay focused." Min-Jae tilted his head slightly. "You don't seem impressed," he observed. There it was. She allowed the smallest smile. "I'm working," she said. That did it. For the first time, something almost resembling amusement touched his face, not performative, real. "Of course you are," he said. "Then I look forward to tomorrow, Ms. Willow." Madinah nodded once. "Same here." She stepped back, professional, controlled, and walked away, not too fast. Not too slow. Min-Jae watched her go. Kianho leaned in slightly. "Should I have her vetted?" Min-Jae didn't answer right away. He watched Madinah as she disappeared into the crowd. "No," he said finally. Ju-hoon and Sung-hyeon exchanged the briefest glance. Min-Jae's voice was quiet. "Not yet." Across the room, Madinah picked up another glass of champagne she had no intention of drinking. "So what do you think?" the chief asked. She kept her eyes forward. "He's exactly what we thought," she said. A pause. "And?" Maeve pressed. Madinah's grip tightened just slightly on the glass. "And he's a problem." She didn't say why. She didn't need to. Because for the first time in a long time, Madinah Willow had met someone she couldn't immediately read. And Min-Jae Oh had just found one of the only women in the room who hadn't fell under his spell. The next morning, the farmland stretched wide and golden under the sun. Quiet. Open. Deceptively simple. Madinah stepped out of the car first, lasses in place, posture easy but alert. The air smelled like earth and possibility, exactly the kind of place people built honest things. Which, she reminded herself, was not what this was. Behind her, another car door opened. She didn't turn right away. Stay focused, she told herself. Ms. Willow. There it was, that voice. Madinah turned, smooth and composed. Mr. Oh. Min-Jae stood a few feet away, dressed down, but not really. Crisp white shirt, sleeves rolled just enough, dark trousers. Effortless. Intentional. Unfair. Unbelievably sexy without trying even a little bit. Kian-ho lingered just behind him, tablet in hand, already scanning the property. Further back, Ju-hoon and Sung-hyun took up their usual positions, present, watchful. Madinah gestured toward the land. This is the property, just over 200 acres. It's the last of its kind in Petersburg. Min-Jae's eyes moved over the landscape, not casually, but with precision. He wasn't seeing what was there. He was seeing what it could become. And the infrastructure? He asked. Accessible, she replied. Close enough to major highways like I-95 and 85 without disrupting the city's core. It's ideal. A small pause. For the right project. His eyes flicked to hers. Yes, he said, it is. They started walking, side by side, not too close, but close enough where she could smell his cologne. Something heavenly, maybe not heavenly, but definitely expensive. Madinah launched into the details, zoning, permits, environmental considerations. Her tone was professional, steady, but she could feel it. His attention wasn't just on the land, it was on her. He was studying her. You've done this before, he said after a moment. Of course, she replied lightly. He glanced at her. Not this. Madinah kept her eyes forward. You'd be surprised. I don't think I would, he said. There was something in the way he said it, like he was filing her away piece by piece. Analyzing, stop that, she thought. You're very observant, she said. I have to be. So do I. That got the smallest hint of a reaction. They walked a few more steps in silence, the gravel crunching softly beneath their feet. Then Min-Jae stopped. Madinah turned slightly. Is something? He looked past her. To the left, he said. She followed his gaze. Open land, a slight rise, nothing remarkable at first glance. Open, but elevated just enough to overlook the surrounding acreage. What about it? She asked. Best vantage point, he said. If you were building something you wanted to secure. Madinah crossed her arms loosely. Security for a data center. Min-Jae didn't look at her. Data is the most valuable commodity in the world, he said. You don't protect it after the fact. You design protection into the foundation. That tracked, too well. While she was still peering at the open land, Min-Jae looked her up and down. He could not help it, and Madinah noticed this. But he regained composure and turned slightly toward Kian-ho. Walk the perimeter from that ridge, he said. I want sight lines, access points, and any vulnerabilities noted. Kian-ho nodded immediately, already moving. Yes, sir. Min-Jae continued, seamless. He spoke in Korean. Ju-hoon, Sung-hyun, go with him. They didn't question it, didn't hesitate. Within seconds, they were moving ahead. Spreading out with purpose, scanning the land like a trained unit. Madinah watched them go, understanding completely what he ordered in Korean. It made sense to her. He was tactical. She turned back to Min-Jae. Efficient. Now he looked at her. Yes, he said before adding, and necessary. Silence settled in after they disappeared over the slight rise. The space between them shifted. Quieter now, more exposed. Madinah tilted her head slightly with a hint of flirtation. So this is the part where you pretend this is all about infrastructure. A flicker of something crossed his face. Isn't it? What else would it be about? He asked. Wind moved softly through the grass around them. No distractions, no buffer, just them. You're not what I expected, he said. She tilted her head more. That sounds like a compliment. It's an observation. Those can be dangerous. For who? For anyone making them too quickly. A beat. He stepped just a fraction closer, not enough to be obvious, enough to matter. I don't make quick judgments, he said. No, she replied softly. I can tell that you make accurate ones. Silence stretched between them, charged, measured, neither of them breaking, heat building. Then Madinah stepped back, professional again. Shall we? She said, gesturing ahead. Min-Jae studied her for 1 second longer, then nodded. Yes, he said. But as they walked, something had shifted. Later that day in the mayor's office, Madinah stood in front of the desk, arms crossed, composed. The mayor and the chief watched her carefully. Well, the chief asked. Madinah exhaled once. Like I said, he's exactly what we thought, she said. The mayor nodded. And, Madinah hesitated just slightly. He's disciplined, strategic, already mapping out security and expansion points. She paused. He's not here to explore, he's here to execute. The chief nodded. That tracks. Silence. Madinah said, there's more. The mayor leaned forward slightly, meeting her eyes. Go on. Madinah started. He's also. Then she stopped. Chief Preach smirked faintly. Go on. Madinah rolled her eyes just a little. He's charming, she said flatly. The mayor raised an eyebrow. And, Madinah sighed, and he knows it. The chief let out a quiet chuckle. That a problem? Madinah didn't answer right away. Then, yes. She paused for a moment. Because he's not easy to read, she added. And he's very good at making you think you're the one in control. The mayor studied her. And are you? She asked. Madinah straightened slightly. Of course, this is what I've trained for, she said, but it came a fraction too quick. The chief caught it, didn't say anything. Not far from Petersburg, about 30 minutes away up Highway 95 north in the penthouse of an ultra-luxury hotel with floor-to-ceiling windows, Min-Jae stood at the glass, hands in his pockets, still as ever. Behind him, Kian-ho, watching. You were right about the ridge, Kian-ho said, measured. Clear sight lines, minimal exposure from the east side. It was the strongest position on the property. Min-Jae didn't turn. I know. Kian-ho stepped a little closer, not challenging, just precise. You could have assessed that with us. There it was, not an accusation, an observation. Min-Jae's gaze stayed on the city. And yet I didn't. Silence. Ju-hoon and Sung-hyun remained near the entryway, quiet but listening. Kian-ho folded his hands behind his back. You wanted time alone. Min-Jae finally turned, slow, controlled. Was that a problem? Kian-ho stared at him. It was unusual. A pause. Min-Jae studied him for a moment, then looked away again. Everything about this place was unusual, he said. That's not what I meant. Of course it was. Silence stretched. Then, did you want her vetted? Kian-ho asked, cleaner now, more direct. Min-Jae's jaw shifted slightly, a beat too long. No. Kian-ho's brow tightened just a fraction. Sir, I said no. Calm, final, another pause. Kian-ho chose his next words carefully. You don't trust easily. No, Min-Jae agreed. And yet. He didn't finish it. He didn't need to. Min-Jae's voice was quieter now. She's exactly what she appears to be. But this time, it sounded less like certainty, and more like a decision. Kian-ho noticed. Of course he did. And if she's not? He asked, a long beat. Min-Jae's eyes drifted, not to the city, but somewhere else entirely. Then I'll handle it. That landed heavier than it should have, because they all heard what was underneath it. He didn't want her to be anything else. Kian-ho nodded once, understood, but not convinced. As he stepped back, Ju-hoon and Sung-hyun exchanged the briefest glance. Something was up. Min-Jae remained at the window, still, controlled, but not untouched. For the first time in a long time, something was making him feel. The next day, Madinah invited Min-Jae to another event, an auction. This was something that the event planner, Melody, had put together especially as a ruse, but the city didn't know that. The space felt warmer than the last event as the residents poured into the space. Dim lighting. Intimate. A live band played slowed down or sped up R&B covers, familiar songs reimagined. The kind that made people sway without realizing it. Madinah stepped inside, and yes, she shut it down. This time, Miss Evie had gone even bolder, a sunset orange gown. It was giving vitamin C sleek. Sculpted. A slit just high enough to suggest, not announce. Gold accents at her wrist, her ears. Her hair pulled back this time, clean, elegant, exposing the long line of her neck. She looked like trouble, a baddie, and she knew it. Careful, Maeve murmured beside her. You're supposed to be working. I am working, Madinah said smoothly. Maeve smirked. Uh-huh. Across the room, Min-Jae turned, like he felt her. And this time, he didn't hide the reaction, slow, measured. But there. His dark hair was impeccably styled, his features sharp and intelligent. He wore a sharply tailored suit, understated yet radiating an aura of immense wealth and power. But it was his eyes, even from this distance, that commanded attention. They were dark, fathomless pools, and Madinah had the unsettling sensation that they missed nothing. There was a stillness about him, a coiled energy that suggested immense control, a stark contrast to the effervescent chatter of the surrounding guests. He moved toward her, Kian-ho a step behind, the others further back. When he reached her, he didn't speak right away, just took her in. Madinah lifted a brow slightly. Mr. Oh! His voice, when it came, was lower than before. Ms. Willow. He stepped closer. And there it was, that scent, clean, expensive, warm, something woodsy with a hint of spice, not overpowering, but unmistakable. Madinah's breath stopped for a second. Annoying, she thought to herself before saying aloud, you clean up well. He smiled. I was about to say the same. You should have, she replied. It would have been charming. I don't rely on charm. That's a shame, she said lightly. I think it's been working for you. Min-Jae could not hide his smile. The band switched songs. And then almost under his breath, he closed his eyes and sang the next lyric. Make it last forever. Perfectly timed. Madinah blinked. You know this song. He glanced at her. Of course, Keith sweat. Oh wow, Madinah jutted her head back a bit. Min-Jae huffed a smile. I have range. She studied him, genuinely surprised now. Hip-hop too, she asked. Yes, and K-hip-hop, of course. Surprised, Madinah said. You don't give me music, lover. That smile came back, small but real. You'd be surprised what I make time for. Yeah, that landed. But the mayor broke the moment. She moved through the room with quiet command, greeting donors, shaking hands, owning every inch of space without ever raising her voice. As she passed, she gave Madinah the slightest nudge at the elbow. Subtle, intentional. Now, Madinah didn't miss a beat. Mr. O, she said smoothly. Min-Jae turned just as the mayor arrived at her side. Mayor, Madinah added, I'd like to introduce you to Min-Jae Oh. The mayor's smile was effortless, polished, powerful. Mr. O, she said, extending her hand. We're very pleased to have you in Petersburg. Min-Jae took her hand, composed, offering the slightest nod of respect. The pleasure is mine. And it was flawless, exactly what it needed to be. But the mayor lingered half a second longer than necessary, just enough to look him over, not subtle, not even a little. Well, she said lightly, releasing his hand, you are going to be very popular in my city. Madinah closed her eyes internally. Min-Jae's brow lifted just slightly, amused, dangerously so. I'll do my best to make a good impression, he replied. Oh, I don't think that'll be a problem, the mayor said smoothly. Then just a flick of her eyes to Madinah. A signal. Oh, he's fine. Madinah kept her expression neutral, professional, like she was unmoved. But she was absolutely moved. They exchanged a few more pleasantries, measured, cordial, both of them playing their roles perfectly. But as the mayor turned to move on, she passed just behind Madinah, leaning in ever so slightly, voice low, controlled. Stay on your game. A beat. Then, even lower, the mayor added, and stop looking at that man like that. Gone. Just like that, Madinah took a slow breath, keeping her posture steady. Min-Jae watched her, catching the shift. Is everything okay? He asked. She glanced at him, calm, composed. Just work, the city needs me to help with something, she said. A pause, his gaze lingered a second longer than it should have. Of course they do, he replied. As the auction continued, they drifted together, too easily, too naturally. There's an event tomorrow, Madinah said at one point. More intimate. It's called a Jeffersonian dinner. What's a Jeffersonian dinner? He asked. Madinah smiled. Well, the mayor is hosting a small group dinner with notable people from various backgrounds. There will be a curated conversation around one shared theme. Basically, no small talk. I don't like small talk, Min-Jae smirked. Madinah laughed. I can tell. Anyways, it's inspired by the Monticello dinners that Thomas Jefferson used to host. Glanced at her. You're inviting me? I'm extending an opportunity, she corrected while holding his gaze. A pause. I accept, he said. Of course he did. Later, they stood near a display in a quieter area. Min-Jae said, You don't strike me as small town, you strike me as global. Madinah. Answer came too easily. I seem global, but you're from South Korea. Who is the global one here? He ignored her comment. Where have you lived? She took a sip of her drink. Various places. For real estate, he asked casually, raising a brow. She smiled. Not exactly. Then he said, Let me guess, international sales, maybe even government work. Madinah was surprised by his question, but pivoted with the technique she was trained with. She said, I'd rather talk about you. Like, how did you find that plot of land? Aren't there large plots of land where you're from? Not for that price, he smirked, but Min-Jae continued the redirecting conversation game with, Where are you from? Let me guess, LA. I hear a slight accent. Pleased with himself, Min-Jae took a sip of his drink. Madinah blinked, genuinely caught off guard. Okay, wow, Mr. O, she said, impressed despite herself. You have a good ear. A beat. My turn, she added. Let me guess. You're from the Itaewon corridor. Min-Jae nearly choked on his drink. He laughed, real this time. What do you know about Itaewon corridor? He asked, studying her more closely now. So you've been to Korea? Madinah smiled, relaxed but careful. Well, I'm global, aren't I? It was light, playful, but it told him nothing. And that was the point, because that was exactly where he lived, along with other billionaires in Seoul. Kyun-ho, standing nearby, observed the entire exchange. His gaze stayed on Madinah, curious. He watched the pattern now, how she redirected, how she answered questions without really answering them at all. Skilled, Intentional, almost. Suspicious. He didn't react, didn't interrupt, but he filed it away. Carefully. Hey loves, you can feel it, right? That tension building the way neither of them is saying what they actually mean. And Kianho, yeah, he's definitely clocking it. Go ahead, tell me what you think in the comments. Is this about to get messy? Or are we still pretending it's just business? Now, where were we? The very next night, Madinah and Min-Jae sat across from each other at the Jeffersonian dinner, held at the city's finest restaurant in Old Towne. Soft candlelight flickered against exposed brick walls. The low hum of conversation wrapped around them, punctuated by the clink of glasses and the distant swell of music drifting in from the street. Curated guest list, the mayor, of course, but also city figures, business leaders, old money and new. Madinah in control. She wore black tonight. Sleek, understated, deadly in its simplicity, and Min-Jae noticed. Of course he did. You look beautiful tonight, he said like it was an observation, not a compliment. Madinah held his gaze, looking at his designer suit. Thank you, she replied smoothly. You clean up well yourself. A flicker in his eyes, amusement, but softer this time. The evening moved easily after that. Conversation flowed, wine poured. Laughter, real laughter, surfaced in moments neither of them expected. Madinah watched him carefully at first, then less carefully. Because the man across from her didn't just command a room, he listened, measured, intentional, present. It was disarming. And you, he asked at one point, swirling the wine in his glass. You always intended to stay somewhere like this? Madinah leaned back slightly, considering him. No, she said honestly. Not always. His eyes lifted to hers. What changed? A beat. She hadn't planned to answer that, but something about the way he asked, not prying, just curious. Perhaps actually caring. My mother raised me by herself, she said. She was extraordinary, sacrificed everything so I could have the best. A small pause. She passed a few years ago. Min-Jae didn't interrupt, didn't rush to fill the space, just stayed there with her. I moved to Petersburg after that, she continued. Needed something quieter, a faint smile. Or at least I thought I did. His gaze didn't waver. I understand that, he said. Something in his tone made her still. You do, she asked. He set his glass down. My father died when I was 20. Just like that, no build-up, no performance, but it landed. Madinah's expression softened just slightly. That's young. Yes. A pause and you took over, she asked. I had to. No self-pity, no pride, just truth. She studied him differently now, not as the man building an empire, but as the man who inherited one before he was ready. That's a lot, she said quietly. It was necessary. People's livelihoods depended on it, he replied. Their eyes met and something shifted, not tension, not strategy, recognition. Two people who had carried more than they ever said out loud. Two people who kept going anyway. Madinah exhaled softly. You don't seem like someone who slows down. I don't, he said. Then why here? Opportunity. She locked eyes with him. If you buy, that won't be the only reason for buying here. He looked at her, really looked at her. No, he admitted. Something unspoken passed between them, and for the first time this didn't feel like a game. It felt personal. Around them the evening began to wind down. One by one people excused themselves, early meetings, long days, convenient exits, until it was just them. Madinah noticed first. The quiet, the space, the way the room seemed to shift around them. Did you plan this? He asked. She gave a small smile. I planned a productive evening. He leaned back slightly, studying her. That's not what I asked. Silence settled between them, but it wasn't empty. It was full of everything they weren't saying. He glanced toward his team. A subtle nod. They moved. No hesitation, no questions. Madinah's breath slowed as the last of them disappeared from view. You dismissed them, she said. Yes, that's becoming a habit. A hint of a smile. You've noticed. I notice everything, she replied, a beat. I know. They were too close now, close enough that she could catch it again, that scent. Warm, clean, expensive, dangerous. But he interrupted her thoughts with, You smell amazing, he said quietly. Once again, he'd caught her off guard, just enough she let out the smallest breath. I was thinking the same about you. There it was, honest, unfiltered. A end suddenly, too much space had closed between them. Min-Jae, she started, but he was already there. Close enough that she could feel the heat of him, the steadiness, the control barely. You should stop me, he said, voice low. She didn't move, didn't step back, because the truth was she didn't want to, which was the problem. His hand lifted, slow, deliberate, just brushing her cheek ever so lightly, testing. Giving her time to pull away, she didn't. That was all it took. He kissed her, not rushed, not reckless, intentional like everything else about him, but beneath it, something deeper. Something that had been building since the moment they met. Since she first took his breath away when he met her in that violet gown. She felt his strong, lean muscle under his shirt, his heart relentlessly beating. And when she kissed him back, really kissed him back, that control, gone, just for a second, just enough. And that was the problem, because Madinah Willow didn't lose control, ever, until now. "I'm sorry, I overstepped," Min-Jae said. A man who never apologized to anyone ever was sorry that he lost control. "Don't be sorry," Madinah blurted out before she could control her words. Realizing what she'd just done, Madinah grabbed her coat and her purse. "I'd better get going." Min-Jae helped her put on her coat. Then he asked, almost surprising himself, "Can I see you again tomorrow night? I'm making my decision in a day or so about the land. Maybe you can help me to decide." Not as the person assigned to me, but as... He could not finish his statement. Madinah blushed. Why was she blushing? What was happening to her? Before she could analyze any of this, she simply said, "Sure." Min-Jae smiled with relief. "I'll send a car to pick you up at 7, just send me your address." He placed his hand on her back and they both walked out of the restaurant. The valet brought her car and she got in. She rolled her window down to wave. As she drove off, Min-Jae's eyes followed until she was out of sight. His team stared at him. This was different. "Oh my goodness, my loves, it's getting spicy. Should Madinah have lost control like that? Would you have lost control if Min-Jae kissed you?" Please write in the comments. And if you haven't subscribed, please do so now and hit the notification bell so you can know every time we drop a new story. We appreciate you. Okay, now back to the story. The door to her loft closed, her back against it. Madinah was breathing hard. "What are you doing?" she whispered to herself. This wasn't part of the plan. He wasn't supposed to feel like that. She pushed off the door. Her phone buzzed. She looked at it. The chief of police texted that he wanted a debrief. What was she supposed to say? She's gathering intel from kissing Min-Jae's lips. She sighed before slumping in her chair. Bond, her curious Maine Coon, crept from around the corner. The kitty jumped in her lap. She laughed as she adjusted for his weight. "Bond, you're not 2 pounds anymore," Bond purred. As she patted him, Madinah straightened in the chair. "I'm in control," she said out loud. But for the first time ever, she did not sound convincing. At Min-Jae's penthouse, Kian-ho was waiting quietly for him to take a seat. When Min-Jae finally settled, Kian-ho studied him. "You dismissed us again." No response. "Do you want her vetted now?" Kian-ho asked. Min-Jae paused just for a second. Then, "Yes." That was new. Kian-ho nodded slowly. Understood. Because whatever had just happened, that kiss, it changed the game. The next day she arrived at his penthouse at the hotel for dinner. She'd brought Bond. She thought perhaps the meal would be casual since all they did were gala functions. However, the visit was anything but simple. The suite overlooked the city from above, floor-to-ceiling windows, glass and steel, Richmond glowing beneath them like something curated just for him. Inside, luxury but controlled, intentional. A private chef had prepared dinner, then disappeared before she arrived. The table was already set. Crystal candlelight, a quiet spread of indulgence, seared wagyu, butter-poached lobster, truffle pasta that barely needed touching. And beside it, Korean dishes plated with precision, galbi perfectly caramelized, japchae glossy and delicate, small bowls of banchan arranged like art, and at the center, a simple pot of kimchi jjigae. Still gently steaming. Home, Madinah noticed that, of course she did. "You didn't have to do all this," she said. "I did," Min-Jae replied simply, and that was that. Bond went to his bowl with the fraise and they talked, not in full truths but closer than either of them intended. It was there, over coffee he didn't drink and a meal he barely touched, that something shifted. Min-Jae let something slip, not about the business, never that, but about the people, the ones no one saw. Widows. "Children," he said, voice even. "Families tied to a world they didn't choose." Madinah stilled. He continued, measured, careful. "I take care of them. Growing up, my mother would repeat James chapter 1 verse 7, the verse that says we must look after orphans and widows in their distress and to keep oneself from being polluted by the world. Well, I may be polluted, so it's the least I can do, but I do so quietly." She studied him. "Why quietly?" A pause. "Because that mattered." "Because the image matters," he said, "and so does control." That answer told her everything. There was the man the world feared, and then there was this man, the one carrying responsibility like it had been stitched into him too early and never removed. At one point, almost like it slipped past his guard, he said, "If things were different, I would have built something else." no explanation, no details. He didn't need them. Madinah understood, and that was the problem. Because somewhere between the farmland, the late-night conversations, the way he looked at her like he saw everything and said nothing, she stopped seeing him as a target and started seeing him as a man. Complicated, dangerous, but not what she expected. And when he kissed her and she kissed him back, without hesitation this time, something shifted inside her. Irreversibly. She was already in deeper than she should have been. Time moved. Too quickly. Min-Jae entered the final stages of acquiring the land. Plans were being made. People were preparing. An empire expanding quietly, precisely. But none of that touched her. Not directly. With her, it was something else. Christmas approached. Ironically, his favorite holiday. He bought out a toy store in downtown Petersburg. Every shelf. Every last item. He gave gifts to Petersburg charities dedicated to children, and also shipped gifts to kids back in the region his family came from, long before the money, before the power. Madinah didn't know what to do with that, didn't know how to reconcile it. The man in front of her, and the man she was supposed to stop. Monster didn't feel like the right word anymore, and that made everything. Worse, that night soft lights stretched across an outdoor courtyard. A live band played something low and smooth. R&B softened into something almost intimate. Space heaters glowed, warming the crisp air. It was the kind of night that made everything feel a little softer than it should. Madinah walked beside him. Their shoulders brushed just slightly. Too natural, too easy, dangerous. "You're quiet tonight," he said. She glanced at him. "I could say the same." A hint of a smile. "You usually do." She exhaled softly. "Just thinking." "About me?" he asked. She rolled her eyes lightly. "You're not that interesting." "I think I am." And the way he said it, calm, certain, she almost smiled, almost. They slowed near the edge of the courtyard, just outside the crowd, and once again the world narrowed, just them. "Hey loves, these two are too close. Are they about to pay for it? Write a comment and please let us know your thoughts." Now, where were we? Min-Jae looked as handsome as ever. This night he wasn't in a suit, but instead a sweatshirt with sleeves slightly rolled up. He wore wide denim and white sneakers. He was relaxed. Madinah almost matched him. Her look was laid back, but her heart was. It was beating out of her chest. A mix of emotions. He smelled too good, looked too good. He leaned in for a kiss. No matter how many times he had done this, it always felt like the first kiss. She moved in closer. As he wrapped his arms around her waist, there was an interruption. "Sir?" It was Kianho, low, controlled, urgent. Min-Jae didn't turn right away. "Now?" he asked quietly, almost annoyed. "Yes." That was enough. Min-Jae glanced at Madinah. "Excuse me." She nodded, of course. But she watched. A few steps away, Kianho leaned in, speaking just low enough to keep it contained, but not low enough to hide the shift. Madinah couldn't hear the words, but read their lips. They were speaking Korean in a hushed tone. She could make out some of it. Kianho was saying something about it took real digging. That this challenged their top hackers for weeks, but they finally got into the files. And then it hit him. Whatever Kianho said, it really hit him. There was stillness. And then Min-Jae's posture changed, subtle but sharp. His shoulders squared just slightly. His head tilted, processing, calculating, and then Kianho looked in her direction. Oh no, she thought. He stepped back. But Min-Jae didn't move for a second, didn't look at her. Which was worse. Then he turned, and the air changed, completely. Madinah felt it before he even reached her. That warmth, gone, replaced by something colder, controlled, dangerous. He stopped in front of her. Closer than before, but this time it wasn't soft. "Detective," he said, quiet, precise. The word landed like a slap. Madinah took a deep breath just for a second too long. His eyes locked onto hers. No softness now, no curiosity, just clarity. "Who are you really, Madinah Willow?" he had asked, the question a soft, venomous whisper. It wasn't a plea for clarification, it was a pronouncement of damning certainty. He already knew the answer. Her mind moved fast, too fast. Calculating options. Exits, weapons, responses, none of them good. "Min-Jae," she finally said. "No," he said, just as quiet. "Let's not do that." His eyes dropped briefly to her lips, then back to her hazel eyes, those eyes that he could fall into, and that made it worse, because the feeling, still there, underneath the anger. "I don't trust easy. I almost have to clap my hands because you are really good. I thought I was, but no, it's you. And as you've probably researched, I don't make mistakes." "Let me ask you, was any of this real?" he asked, not accusatory, not loud, worse, honest. Madinah swallowed, careful, measured. "Yes." That slipped out before she could stop it, his jaw flexed. That, he said, stepping just a fraction closer, was your first mistake, and it makes it all the worse for me. She held her ground. I didn't mislead you about everything, she said. He sucked his teeth, just the parts that mattered. That's not fair. A quiet, humorless breath left him. Fair. He repeated. Now he shook his head slightly. He let out a humorless laugh, a sharp, barking sound that echoed the desolation in the room. I brought you into my space. Into my. He stopped himself before whispering dangerously, I trusted you. The word hung there, heavy. And you've been building a case against me. Silence, the music in the background kept playing. People kept laughing, the world kept moving, and right there everything had stopped. He continued, but detective, you have nothing on me. Which was true. Technically, he hadn't broken any laws yet. Madinah's voice was quieter now. I have a job to do. His eyes hardened. And so did I. He took in a deep breath. And you made it complicated. There it was. The truth neither of them wanted. She felt it land. I never meant to be attracted to you, to completely fall for you, but here we are, she said. He shook his head. And that's the problem, he replied, eyes somewhere between fury and disappointment. A long pause. Then he stepped back, just enough to put space between them again. But it felt like miles. You should go, he said, not angry, not loud, but final. This was not the explosive rage she had anticipated, but something far more dangerous. Cold, calculated retribution. The forbidden. Romance that had blossomed in the shadows had been brutally extinguished, replaced by the stark, unforgiving reality of a game that had just escalated to a terrifying new level. Madinah didn't move right away, didn't break eye contact. Min-Jae, go, he repeated, this time colder, louder, and angrier. Before I behave like the Mafia, he said, restraining his fire. She nodded once, professional, controlled, even though she was breaking apart. Then she turned and walked away. Every step felt heavier than the last. The mission, the police department, her career, everything was in jeopardy. But in that moment, all she could see was the shattered hope in Min-Jae's eyes and the dawning realization that she had not only failed her mission, but had irrevocably destroyed something precious in the process. The unmasking was complete, and the consequences were only just beginning. The betrayal wasn't just a professional failure. It was a personal implosion, a shattering of something she hadn't realized she had allowed to take root within her. The thrill of the chase, the intellectual sparring, the stolen glances that held more than just reconnaissance, it had all culminated in this devastating confrontation. And now, the carefully tended embers of what might have been, of what she had dared to hope was real, had been brutally extinguished, leaving only the bitter ash of deceit. Behind her, Kianho stepped back into place beside Min-Jae. Neither of them spoke. For a long moment, Min-Jae just stood there, watching her disappear. And Hatting, that part of him wanted to run after her. He turned away from her again, walking towards the vast expanse of glass that overlooked the outside. His silhouette, framed against the night sky, was a picture of controlled devastation, a monument to broken trust. Madinah turned back briefly to watch him, a spectator at the wreckage of her own making. Every carefully planted piece of intel, every clandestine meeting, every stolen moment of vulnerability had led to this precipice. She had been so engrossed in the thrill of the deception, in the intoxicating dance of their forbidden connection, that she had failed to see the storm gathering on the horizon. She had been trained to anticipate, to adapt, to control every aspect of her operational persona. But Min-Jae had been an anomaly, a variable she hadn't factored into her calculations, a complication that had rewritten the entire script. His betrayal wasn't just personal blow. It was a seismic event that was already sending tremors through the carefully balanced ecosystem of his dangerous world. The news didn't stay quiet. It never did. Min-Jae's network, tight, disciplined, far-reaching, picked it up. Within the hour, whispers at first, then confirmation. His network, vast and intricate, was already humming with the news of Madinah Willow's unmasking. She wasn't who she said she was. A detective, undercover, close to him, too close. And in his world, that kind of mistake didn't just cost trust, it created opportunity. For everyone watching, Min-Jae Oh had been played, his judgment had been clouded. And the woman responsible, the architect of his public humiliation, was now a prime target for his rivals. The knowledge settled upon him with a chilling finality. They wouldn't just try to exploit his weakness, they would try to exploit her. This included Silas Wang. These whispers had reached his top underworld enemy with such predatory glee that he could not contain himself. Silas Wang wasn't just a rival. He was the one man who had been waiting for Min-Jae Oh to slip. Chinese and Korean by blood and deeply embedded in both worlds, Silas had built his empire in the space between borders, fast, ruthless, and loyal only to opportunity. When Min-Jae began expanding his operations into China, it was Silas who reached out first, proposing an alliance that would have made them unstoppable. It was smart, strategic, profitable, and Min-Jae had turned him down without hesitation. After all, Min-Jae had never been the type to share and immediately did not trust Silas. Since then, Silas hadn't tried to compete head-on. He'd waited, watched, patient, because men like him didn't need to win everything, they just needed the right moment. And now, with Min-Jae distracted and exposed, he finally had it. The first time Min-Jae met Silas Wang in person, the room seemed to tighten around him. Silas was taller than he expected, lean, with the kind of hard elegance that didn't ask for attention. It demanded it. Every step, every gesture, precise and cold, like a predator fully aware of its power. His jawline was sharp, his eyes almost too calculating, and the faint scar along his left cheek hinted at a history that wasn't polite or legal. He wore subtle designer tailoring that fit like armor, and the scent of leather and cedarwood hung in the air like a warning. He didn't smile. He didn't need to. Silas didn't bluff, men like him didn't. And the moment he spoke, the world seemed to shrink around the words, sharp and deliberate, full of hidden threat. Min-Jae Oh, he said, his tone measured, yet cutting. You've made some bold moves. It was both a greeting and a challenge, and Min-Jae felt it in his bones. This was the man who had been waiting, watching, calculating. The man who had waited years for the right weakness to exploit. The man who dreamed of bringing Min-Jae's empire to its knees. And he'd been hiding out in the next city of Colonial Heights, Virginia, secretly watching Min-Jae, hey loves. Who makes you tremble more, Min-Jae or Silas? My goodness. Bad boys, please subscribe, like, and comment. After all, we are building a community here. A place for people who still believe that it's possible to fall in love. It seems our girl Madinah may have more trouble than she can handle. Let's get back into the story. City stretched out below in cold, glittering silence. Min-Jae stood at the window, unmoving, the same place he'd stood nights before thinking about her. Now, something else entirely. Behind him, Kian-ho stepped into the room. Sir. Min-Jae didn't turn. Say it, A beat. Our sources are picking up movement, Kian-ho said. Word is spreading fast, not just about you about her. That got his attention. Min-Jae's jaw tightened slightly. Go on, Kian-ho continued, measured. They believe she's compromised. Alone and still in the area, they're looking for her. Min-Jae's mind moved fast because he already knew who they were. Silas, he said, not a question. Kian-ho nodded. Yes. Silas didn't build power. He waited for cracks in other men's, and right now Min-Jae had handed him one. Min-Jae finally turned, slow, precise. And her people? He asked. Kian-ho hesitated just slightly. They've lost control of the situation because they don't even know that one exists. Min-Jae exhaled once, slow. Calculating, because this wasn't just about perception or power. It was about both. If Silas got to her first, it wouldn't just be leverage, it would be a message. Min-Jae Oh can be played, which would be unacceptable. But this was also about Madinah, about Min-Jae finally having a visible weakness. Detective or not, former CIA or not, he needed to protect her. As much as he hated himself for it, he loved her even if he'd never said it out loud. He moved away from the window, packing once across the room, controlled, but there was something under it now, something sharper. She made herself a target, Kian-ho said carefully. Min-Jae stopped. Yes, but she's not his to take, she's not anyone's to take. Kian-ho studied him. Sir, she betrayed you. Min-Jae's gaze lifted, cold. I'm aware. Then why? Min-Jae raised his hand for Kian-ho to be silent. Min-Jae didn't have an answer that he was willing to share. Ignoring the question, he said, Silas wants to prove something, that I'm distracted and have lost control, that I can't protect what's close to me. Kian-ho finally understood. Min-Jae lifted his head just slightly. But he's wrong, I always protect what's mine. Kian-ho asked, what do you want to do? Min-Jae didn't hesitate. We find her before he does. And then, his voice dropped. We end him, we end anyone that tries to touch her. Not loud, not emotional. Final, somewhere outside of the hotel. Madinah Willow, whether she realized it or not, was no longer just a detective. She was leverage, the center of a game she hadn't fully seen yet, and two very dangerous sides were closing in. She was on the phone, finally walking towards her car. The cover, blown? The chief asked. Completely, Madinah replied. The mayor's voice came through next. I warned you. The way you looked at each other, there's more to this story. Not smug, not surprised, just right. Madinah exhaled. I'll be at City Hall in 15. She ended the call and moved down the side street, her mind still catching up Min-Jae. The way he said detective, the look in his eyes. She let out a breath, a car door slammed behind her. Not hers, her body reacted before the thought landed. She turned. Two men, too close, too deliberate. Ms. Willow, one of them said, voice smooth, almost polite. Wrong. Everything about this was wrong. Then they spoke Mandarin to one another and she understood it loud and clear. Grab her, one said to the other. She slipped off her shoes, letting them fall where they stood. Not tonight, she said. They moved, so did she. Fast, efficient. The first one lunged, she pivoted, drove her elbow into his throat, followed with a sharp strike to the knee. He dropped hard. The second came in from the side she blocked, redirected, twisted his wrist until it snapped loose, then drove him face first into the pavement. A third, she hadn't seen him. He grabbed for her, she spun, heel of her hand cracking across his jaw, then a clean sweep that sent him crashing down. She moved before they could recover. Running. Left turn, alley, another block, counting. 3-2 she stopped. A man stepped out ahead. Still, prepared, a gun raised, silenced. End of the road, he said with calm. Madinah's eyes tracked everything distance. Angles, timing, nothing good. Behind her, footsteps closing in again. She was boxed in. Her chest rose once. Steady. You're making a mistake, she said. The man tilted his head slightly. No, you did. She shifted her weight, ready to move anyway. A sharp strike hit her from behind. Everything went dark. Consciousness returned slowly, wrists tight, tied to a chair. Madinah tested the restraints immediately. No panic, just assessment. Industrial rope, pulled tight but rushed, not perfect. She was in a dark warehouse. A voice cut through the room. You're more trouble than they said. She lifted her head. Silas, mid-40s, calm, comfortable, like this was routine. I'll take that as a compliment. He smiled faintly. You should. He stepped closer, studying her. You know why you're here? Yes, she said evenly. You don't have the reach to go after him directly. A flicker of approval crossed his face. So I take something he might care about. Madinah didn't react. You're overestimating my importance. Am I? Because from what I hear, you had his attention. Silence. She looked him directly into his eyes and gave him nothing. But internally she was troubled, because that part wasn't wrong. Outside, engines cut, doors closed with precision. Min-Jae stepped out. Different now, no polish, no fancy suit, just purpose. Ju-hoon and Sung-hyun moved beside him, Kyeon-ho close. 6 men inside. Maybe more, Kyeon-ho said. Min-Jae gave a single nod. Move. Inside, it was immediate. A door blown open, muted shots, bodies dropped alive but seriously hurt, clean, controlled, vicious. Madinah's head snapped toward the sound, her pulse kicked. No way more movement, closer now. And then in the midst of the smoke, he stepped into the room. Min-Jae, eyes locked on hers. Everything else fell away for a second. You came, she said before she could stop herself. His expression shifted. Sharp. Complicated. Didn't expect to see you this soon, he said sarcastically. Madinah let out a breath that almost turned into a laugh. Yeah, well, I guess you can't get rid of me that fast. He moved to her, cutting the rope at her wrists. His hands steady, precise, but when his fingers brushed her skin, there it was again. That pull, unwanted, unavoidable. You okay? He asked low. She rolled her shoulders, already resetting. I had it handled. A look, dry, knowing. I'm sure you did. Behind them, Kyeon-ho. We need to move, now. Madinah stood fully, scanning the room, clocking exits, bodies, angles back in detective mode. Silas groaned from the floor, bleeding profusely but restrained and very much alive. This time Min-Jae looked at him. Cold, final, he pointed his gun. Don't touch him, Madinah said quickly. That stopped everything, all eyes on her. She stepped forward, pulling her phone from her coat. I'm not losing jurisdiction on this, she added. Calm, firm. She hit a button. This is Detective Willow. Officer needs immediate backup, armed suspects, multiple down, sending location now. Then, to Min-Jae, quieter, he answers to the law. Their eyes locked. Tension, 2 worlds. Colliding again, sirens faint but coming. Min-Jae stepped back, decision made. To the door, he said to his team. Then to her, 5 minutes. Not a question. Outside, the night air hit colder now. Clearer, real. Madinah stepped out beside him, but nothing about it felt the same. You didn't have to come, she said. He didn't look at her. Yes, he said quietly. I did. She studied him. Why? That made him pause, just for a second. Then he looked at her, and for the first time there was no control in it. I don't know. But they both knew that wasn't true. Morning came too fast, too quiet. Petersburg looked exactly the same, which felt offensive. Madinah stood on the steps outside the precinct, arms folded, coffee untouched in her hand. She heard him before she saw him. Footsteps, measured, familiar. She didn't turn right away. "You shouldn't be here," she said. Min-Jae stopped beside her. Close. Not too close. "I could say the same," he replied. She finally looked at him. No gown, no soft lighting, just truth. "You're leaving," she said, not a question. "Yes," she nodded once. "You lied to me," he said. "You were building something with me that wasn't real." Madinah sighed. "I was doing my job, but you were lying to me also, lying via omission." His jaw tightened slightly. "You have no proof of that." Madinah shook her head. He grabbed her hand and placed it on his heart. It sent shockwaves through to her very core. "This was real for me," he said. "Was it real for you?" There it was again. The question that he wouldn't let go. He released her hand. She held his gaze. "Yes, more than it should have been, more real than with anyone in my entire life." A breath left him. The weight of everything sat between them, what they were, what they weren't, what they could never be. "You saved me," she said with honesty. He looked away slightly. "Don't. I'm serious." "I didn't do it for you," he said quickly. She tilted her head. "Then why?" He didn't answer, couldn't, because the answer had nothing to do with logic anymore. Madinah stepped back slightly, creating space, necessary space. "This doesn't work," she said. "Not like this." "I know. I can't build something real when it's complicated like this," she said. That one hit hard because it was true, and he knew it. Min-Jae nodded once, slow, accepting. "Then I won't ask you to." "Maybe I need to change a few things." Silence. Final this time. Madinah swallowed, steadying herself, eyes welling up. "Goodbye, Min-Jae." He looked deeply into her hazel eyes for just a second longer. Then, "Goodbye, Madinah." And just like that, they walked away from each other. Time didn't fix it, but it changed things. Min-Jae returned to Seoul. But something in him had shifted, quietly, permanently. The business started to look different, cleaner deals, less noise, less damage. His men noticed. Kian-ho noticed most. "You're restructuring," he said one night. Min-Jae didn't look up. "I'm evolving." Kian-ho studied him. "For her." A pause. Min-Jae's voice stayed even. "For me." But that wasn't the whole truth. Back in Petersburg, Madinah worked case after case. But every now and then, a song, a scent, a moment, and she'd think of him. And hate that she did, because she missed him more than she could admit. A year later, it was Christmas Day. The town glowed, lights strung across every storefront, garland wrapped around lampposts, laughter, music, the hum of a community fully in its element. The Christmas market was alive, warm drinks, handmade gifts, couples bundled close against the cold. Madinah moved through it slowly, hands tucked into her coat, trying to enjoy it, almost succeeding. "Detective Willow." She froze, that voice. She turned, and there he was, Min-Jae, standing in the middle of it all like he didn't belong, and somehow exactly where he was supposed to be. No entourage, no distance, just him. "You're back?" she questioned, soft. "Careful, yes. For business?" she asked. He shook his head slightly. "For you," Madinah exhaled slowly. "Min-Jae, I meant what I said," he continued. "About changing things." She studied him. "People say that all the time. I'm not people." A bit of that old tension, but it was softer now, more grounded. "I've started transitioning everything," he said. "Legitimate operations, full transparency where it matters." Her brows lifted slightly. "That's not a small change." "No," he said. "It isn't, and it hasn't been easy, but I'm doing it anyway. I didn't come here to convince you," he added. "I came here to tell you the truth," she said. "And what truth is that?" He stepped closer, not too close. "That I love you and that I can't get you out of my mind." Madinah's breath stopped. "You don't get to say that like it fixes everything or changes who we are," she said. "I know. Then why say it? Why torture us?" "Because it's true," he said. "And we both deserve to hear the truth." She looked at him, really looked at him. And this time, she saw the change, not perfection, not a fairy tale, but effort. "I don't know if I can trust this," she admitted. "You shouldn't," he said. That surprised her. "Not yet." He paused, "but I'm willing to earn it." Madinah crossed her arms slightly. "Min-Jae, why the speech?" Min-Jae tilted his head. "You think I flew across the world for a speech?" He continued. "This is truth." Despite herself, she smiled, just a little, dangerous. "I've been rebuilding." "Everything," he said, "piece by piece, the right way this time." She studied him. "Where's your entourage?" He said. "Sung Hyun and Joo-hoon are still on my security detail, and Kian-ho is still my right-hand man. But their mission has evolved. We're still ready for any threats, but we actually pray together now." "I think that's the secret of this success. You really are serious?" she asked. "As you know, I don't do anything halfway, and I'm not asking you to forget what I was," he said. or who I've been. I'm asking you to look at what I'm choosing now. I've had power, money, control. None of it has ever made me truly happy or feel the way I do when you're around. Then he said in Korean, Neon ne Salamea, and I know you understand what I said. I've always known that you understood. You are my person. You are mine, the only woman that I'll ever want. And with this, she could not help herself. Her heart burst. Madinah whispered what was true to him. I love you too. No hesitation. No performance. She wrapped her arms around his neck and he kissed her like she was his because she was. A week later, he would propose to her on New Year's Day, starting off life new in every way possible. Soon to follow was a beautiful wedding in LA, with a first dance to make it last forever, and a second wedding in Seoul. Their home base would be Itaewon Row Corridor at his luxury villa, but also in Petersburg, Virginia, where Min-Jae finally bought that farmland for his legit U.S. operations. Not long after that, Tae Kim stepped out of his car to visit Maeve at City Hall and froze, because there was Min-Jae, waiting, alone, leaning on the corner of the building. Tae's body shifted instantly. Wrong city, Tae said coolly. Min-Jae didn't move. I don't want trouble. Tae studied him carefully. Then what do you want? Min-Jae gave him direct eye contact. To thank you, Tae frowned. For what? Min-Jae said, for alerting the police of my arrival, putting Madinah in position. I would have never met my wife if it weren't for you. I know it was Yuna that tipped you off. Tae didn't confirm it, didn't deny it. Min-Jae nodded once. And in doing that, you changed my life. Min-Jae continued. Tae's expression shifted just slightly. For the better, Tae asked. I believe so. I work hard every day to be a better man, to deserve my wife. Good, T said, because I'd hate to have to deal with you myself. Min-Jae looked at this handsome, brave actor. He let out a low laugh. Understood, superstar, and by the way, I'm a fan. As the kids say, you were my bias. Tae laughed at this. And they dapped each other up. Another year later, in a cozy diner in Petersburg, was the most unlikely of double dates. Madinah had just defended Maeve's decision of color-coding Yoon's wardrobe in the Roy G. Biv spectrum. Maeve smiled across the table. Detective, I knew I liked you. Madinah laughed. The feelings are mutual. Tae shook his head. How can you co-sign that? There is a such thing as too organized. Maeve laughed sweetly. Wife-fees sticking together. Min-Jae laughed, sitting beside his Madinah, relaxed in a way that would have been unthinkable some time ago. Different, still him, but lighter. Tae glanced at him. So how, married life? Min-Jae didn't hesitate. I thought I was the kingpin, but the way she crashes out over interior design, I think I've met my match. Madinah shot him a look, then she couldn't hold in her laughter, and don't forget it. Min-Jae corrected himself. I've never been happier, and that's the truth. Maeve cooed, that's so sweet, while playing tug-of-war with Yoon, no longer a baby, but now a very strong toddler currently not letting go of his spoon. Madinah's face softened instantly. Hi, sweetheart, can you give it to me? Yoon immediately behaved and passed the utensil over. Min-Jae watched her. Quiet, intentional, she would make a good mom, too. Maeve caught it, of course she did. Oh yeah, she whispered to Tae, grinning. He's gone. Tae smirked. Completely head over heels. Min-Jae could hear them and didn't argue. Didn't deflect. Just reached for Madinah's hand under the table, squeezed it with gentle pressure. And she held on as tightly as she could. This has been Christmas in Old Towne, where ambitious women, unexpected love, and the holiday spirit collide. Please subscribe, like, comment, and share. Hit the notification bell and fall in love with our stories. More romances are coming right here in Petersburg. The more people subscribe, the more love stories we can tell. Be blessed and have a very merry everything.